Thanks, dude. First of all, I want to thank everybody for showing up. I didn't know if we would have 500 or 500 people, and thankfully it's closer to 500 than 5. It probably lets me know I'll still have a job in the morning. We are the only local talk show in Waco, and that's one of the reasons that we decided to do this, and that we thought this was a good venue, a good opportunity to do this. Thankfully, since we have put all of this together, we now have an actual day. I didn't want to get to this point and still not know when we were going to go to the polls. So I'm considering this, and I'm branding it the official kickoff of the primary season. These candidates I know are ready to get at it, and we're happy to be a part of it here at News Talk 1230. We are live on the air. If you have to leave early or if you're on your way, you can listen on the radio, News Talk 1230. You can listen online, newstalk1230.com. And then you can listen for my stellar and insightful commentary tomorrow morning, 6 to 9 a.m. Let me give you a brief bio of our panelists here. You've already heard from Duke Machado. He is the director of GOPisforme.com and an auxiliary of the Republican Party of Texas and a Hispanic Outreach Initiative, also the 2011 Volunteer of the Year for Texas Senate District 22. Brad Holland, ear, nose, and throat surgeon who has practiced in Waco for 10 years. He has, his posts include chairman of the McLennan County Republican Club for the past 3 years. He has chaired the McLennan County Republican Convention, 3-time delegate to the State Republican Convention, and he's got a lot more things here that I'm going to skip so we can get to our candidates. And finally, Wes Lloyd, a lawyer in the Waco office of Naaman Howell Smith and Lee, practicing in the areas of oil and gas. He's named a Rising Star in Energy Law by Texas Monthly Magazine, named Outstanding Young Lawyer for McLennan County in 2011, and active locally in politics here and serves on the board of the directors for the McLennan County Republican Club. Why don't we give these guys a hand while our candidates come up here. Candidates for the sheriff. I'm just going to bring both of these guys out, and they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves in their introduction, I would imagine. Parnell McNamara and Randy Plemons. We did a coin toss before the event, and for the sheriff's race, Randy Plemons will begin. Randy Plemons and Parnell McNamara will each have 2 minutes in their opening remarks, and then we will get to questions. Randy? Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Waco ISD University High School for putting on this forum. Of course, AM 1230, the GOP for Me organization, for putting this on. And obviously, we've got a great crowd here to watch this political process in action. And I know that it's really refreshing to see that so many people are involved in this process. So again, thank you for that. And also I want to thank my opponent for agreeing to also to this forum and this debate. I think it actually gives everyone more of an education of where each of the candidates are coming from. Because I know in some races that was not the opportunity, and that's unfortunate. So it's always good for candidates to be able to get out there and talk. A little bit about me. My name is Randy Plemons. I live in the China Spring area. I'm 45 years of age. I'm married for the last 21, almost 22 years, I believe, if I'm doing my math right. That's coming up. My wife, Mary, is a registered nurse here in town. I have 2 children, Roman and Alicia. We attend St. Louis Church here in Waco. And one of the things I get asked quite a bit about myself is, why are you doing this? Well, just like I mentioned a few weeks ago to another news outlet, I enjoy the work that I do at the Sheriff's Office. And one of the things that you're going to find working in any modern law enforcement agency is that you are always working on problem-solving issues. And I am the person that does that already as your current Chief Deputy of the McLennan County Sheriff's Office, and I want to continue to do those activities in the future. We've done a lot of work, and there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And I'm very proud of the work that we have done. And I think we'll probably get into some of those things as we move along during this debate process, and we can talk about those things. But again, we'll talk a little bit more later about some of those things. Again, thank you very much for allowing us to have this forum and this format to do this.
Thank you very much, Randy. And I too want to thank everybody for being here. This is a great crowd. I want to thank the panel and Duke Machado and GOP is for me for putting this on, giving us the opportunity to be here. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up here in Waco. I went to school here, graduated from Baylor University, and 4 months later ended up with U.S. Marshals. And I put in a little over 32 years with the U.S. Marshal Service. And Mike's goal for the McLennan County Sheriff's Office is very simple. Also for McLennan County itself. I want to make McLennan County a safer place for y'all to live, for you, your children, and your grandchildren, and also mine. I want to bring my 32 plus years of law enforcement experience to the McLennan County Sheriff's Office. That was frontline law enforcement. And my commitment to you is to do everything I can to make McLennan County too tough a place for a criminal to operate. I simply want to make it uncomfortable for them here where they will go somewhere else. I want to see the day that the criminal does not want to be here. I want to see the day that he drives around McLennan County instead of through McLennan County. It's been done in other places. That's the way it is in some of these other counties in Texas. I want it to happen here. And I want to do everything that I can to do that. My vision for that is to bring all the law enforcement agencies together, like the police departments, the Texas Rangers, U.S. Marshals, DEA, constables, all the law enforcement agencies combined with all their ability and knowledge can put a real big dent in crime. And I think we can make a real difference. I think we can make this county a very safe place to live. That is my commitment to you. I have done it before, and I want to do it again. And thank you very much.
Mr. Plemons, a significant portion of the discussion of this race so far has involved the issue of the need for an administrator, quote unquote, someone who has experience setting policy, writing budgets, and handling the politics of county government, versus the need for a, quote unquote, lawman, someone with experience in the field, wearing a sidearm, personally interacting with the criminals before they reach the jail, things like that. Do you believe that this is a fair characterization of the two of you as the administrator and Mr. McNamara as the lawman? And why do you believe that your background makes you a better candidate?
Well, in 2012, in McLennan County, we have around 230,000 residents that live here. McLennan County Sheriff's Office consists of 370 employees and almost a $27 million budget. It requires the daily management of the activities to ensure that the men and women that are out there protecting us every single day, whether they are on the streets or whether they are inside the jail, making sure the inmates are staying put. It's making sure that the administrator, in this case the sheriff's job, is that they have the resources to do that job efficiently and professionally at all times. And it's vital to our community that we have individuals that are out there, getting those criminals, getting them behind bars. But from an administrator standpoint, you have to have the skills and the ability to work with those, such as the Commissioner's Court and other elected officials, in order to make sure all of that is coming together at all times. Now, I've been doing that for the last 12 years as your Chief Deputy. I enjoy doing that work. I enjoy the problem solving. Now, a lot of people say, how can you stand going to Commissioner's Court every Tuesday? Well, it's interesting, but it's a necessary job that must be done in order to achieve the overall goal and the mission of the Sheriff's Office, which is to make sure that the citizens of this county are getting the best bang for their buck. And that is making sure that we are taking care of the citizens in a very professional manner at all times. As an administrator, you're going to have to be able to do that and for a sheriff here in McLennan County in 2012.
Thank you, Mr. Plemons. Is that a fair characterization? Obviously, this is an elected position. Is this more of a politician than anything else?
I would say it's not a politician's position. It's a person that, of course, is a certified peace officer in the state of Texas. They do have to have some form of a background of understanding how law enforcement operations work. There is a difference between someone who may be out there, arresting people on a daily basis, enforcing the calls for service that may come down, versus the administrator that is making sure that that deputy or that investigator or that mental health officer out in the field has the resources to do their job.
Okay. Mr. McNamara, same question to you. Is that a fair assessment, administrator versus lawman?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Make no mistake about it, I'm a lawman, I've always been one, and I always will be. I'm also going to be a good administrator, and I'm going to surround myself with good people that can help me administrate. The jail is a result of good law enforcement. I think the sheriff needs to be a lawman first and an administrator second. And let me make the sheriff simply is the head law enforcement officer in the county. He's the chief law enforcement officer, law enforcement. That's what he does. He is also, by definition, the conservator of the peace. And I think in order to do that, the sheriff should have a good feel for frontline law enforcement, and I certainly do, because I was out there for years and years and years tracking down the worst of the worst, putting them in jail, putting them on ice forever, some of them. And so I think the sheriff should be a lawman first and an administrator second.
And brought up the jail, so our next question is going to come from Brad Holland on that very issue, and specifically the privatization of that jail.
Yes, Mr. McNamara. The issue of privatization of the jail has come up, and as you know, we have a Highway 6 jail run by the county, which does very well on state inspections, and we have a Jack Harwell Detention Center run by a private company, CEC, which has received numerous citations for failing inspections. Now, both of you in this race seem to question the wisdom of privatization in general. But my question is, in this Republican primary, are you generally against privatization of the jail, thinking that the county can do a better job running one, or do we just have the wrong company running our current jail?
Generally speaking, I'm not in favor of a private jail. And I'm saying that because of my dealings with them on security matters. When a private jail guard with Civigenics took a bribe, turned a man loose, he went out and kidnapped a girl within 1 hour and killed her, then we had to track him down. I don't think that a private jail, if you're paying the guards and the employees a much lower wage than you do the county jail itself, I'm not sure that they have the incentive to do the job. Now, if the private jail works well, if it's kept up to standards, it's making money, and it's working, I wouldn't be opposed to it. So far as this private jail, the CEC as it's called, I don't understand why it keeps failing the evaluation. Why can't we bring that jail standards up to the standards of the county jail next door? I would not be opposed to that.
And the reason why that jail is failing and ours is succeeding is because we are not the one managing that jail. The sheriff's office does a very good job with the professionals it has at the Highway 6 jail, and passes those inspections on a regular basis. It does a very good job. But in order for that same result to happen at the private jail, then the sheriff's office needs to be running that jail. you're not going to have the same result, because we are the ones that are doing it in a professional manner and making sure it's taken care of. But to answer your question, I am not in favor of the privatization of the jail. In fact, I recently, just within the last month, proposed to the Commissioner's Court that we actually take back the downtown jail when we are completing the renovations that are currently in process.
Our next question is going to come from Duke Machado, and we're going to move on to the issue of, I'm sure we'll have some time to come back to the jail, move on to the issue of the drug task force, which has been a focal point for different reasons for both of you so far.
Right. Mr. McNamara, I know you've gone on record saying that one of your goals, if elected as sheriff, is to develop a drug unit to tackle the increasing drug distribution here in McLennan County. Given that not all residents favor tax increases, could you give us some specifics on how you plan to fund a new program like that and how that might function?
I believe that we could use the resources that we have now. I understand that there may be some grant money out there that could assist in this. Also, it may be a matter of priority. I think the battle on drugs or against drugs needs to be waged very strongly immediately. Drugs, almost every crime is drug related. Thefts, robberies, a lot of murders and so forth. People simply don't go out and rob somebody and take it to the church offering on Sunday. It usually goes in their arm or up their nose or whatever. So I'm for doing whatever I can to reactivate a drug unit, whether you call it a task force or a drug unit or what. There's got to be some way to squeeze some money out of that $26 million budget into a drug unit of some kind. Waco Police have it. They have a very, very successful drug unit. And so I want to see that happen with the Sheriff's Department. If we can use it, use the resources we have that don't cost the taxpayers any more money, I'm for that. But I don't think the taxpayers would mind paying a little bit if we can step up the effort to eradicate the drugs and make this place safer for our families and our children.
The McLennan County Sheriff's Office has always and continues to investigate drug-related cases throughout McLennan County. I'll be the first to say that the drug task force that existed, the Agroplex, was a very successful unit in McLennan County. But at some point in time, the federal government along with the state government showed that that was no longer going to work as a whole, and that those monies were taken away. What we did is take those investigators and incorporated those into our current criminal investigation section so that there's a broader resource of investigators that work on this on a daily basis. So to suggest that we're not, investigating drug crimes is not correct. And to suggest that there's got to be grant money or there's got to be a plan out there or some way of being able to fund it is not a financial plan. It is very, very expensive. Criminal justice overall costs this particular county in its budget about 1/4 of its county's budget. So if the plan, if I'm hearing it correctly, is to be able to pull resources from other areas within the McLennan County Sheriff's Office, then what you're going to end up doing is cutting services in those particular areas, whether it be patrol, criminal investigations, jail, mental health, or whatever the case may be.
Mr. McNamara says there isn't room in the budget as it stands, or that money would have to come from somewhere else, that these other sources don't exist.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on your question. I apologize.
Mr. Plemons is suggesting that expecting the money to come from somewhere else is not a plan. How do you respond to that?
I think it can be done some way. And my commitment is to try every way in the world to get a drug unit reactivated. And first of all, let me clear one thing up. I did not say they were not investigating narcotics cases. I'm saying it's not enough. And I want to step that up. There's got to be some way to reactivate a drug unit. And I don't know exactly how, but I'm going to do everything I can to find out how to do that.
I'll be moving a minute on the drug task force, by its nature, seems to be a reactive approach rather than a proactive approach. What can be done, what should be done in the sheriff's office on the front end to make sure that a drug task force doesn't have to handle these things once they're already a problem? Mr. Plemons, I'll go to you first.
Well, we're currently doing that right now with neighborhood watch programs where we have district deputies that work those areas that get the citizens more involved. And that's what it has to do across not just Texas or this county, but across the country, where you involve your neighbors and your friends to let you know what's going on in their community so that you can react to it. There's no way you're going to have a drug agent or a deputy sheriff on every corner in this county. That's not realistic to anyone. It's not realistic to the taxpayers. But what is realistic is being able to pull the resources together of the community, and that's what we're doing now in neighborhood watch programs throughout the community, to report those things to us so that when someone does have information about something going on in their community, the deputies can respond to it. If it warrants getting a case, starting to investigate a crime going on, whether it's drug-related, conspiracy, or whatever the case may be, that's the way you involve your community.
What can the office, what should the office do to make sure that the drug problem doesn't get to that point?
I think the drug unit needs to be proactive. There's all kind of ways to do that. One of them is drug interdiction on the interstate. Traffic coming through, a large quantity of drugs come through McLennan County. Officers can be trained in traffic stops once they stop a vehicle. They're trained what to look for, how to react, how to be aware of those situations. The drug task force, as I saw it, because I worked with it, not for it, but in conjunction with it when I was still with U.S. Marshals. It was proactive. It didn't just sit back and do nothing. They were very proactive. They had some good drug agents. They were from some of the surrounding cities. Unfortunately, the task force per se was abolished because of 2 or 3 bad task forces. One of them in Tulia, Texas, and one of them somewhere else. And so ours suffered greatly for that. There's just got to be another way to step up the war on drugs as far as I see it.
Thank you. We're going to take a break from the panelist questions for just a second and give these guys a couple of minutes to interact with each other and ask each other some questions. And first, we're going to give Mr. McNamara an opportunity to ask the question to his opponent, Mr. Plemons. Mr. McNamara?
Randy, how do you see the administration interacting with law enforcement? You and I are obviously at opposite ends of the spectrum on what the sheriff needs to be, and I heard you a while ago explain that. Just kind of tell me a little bit more about that.
Let me just clarify. You're asking me what, as an administrator, what an administrator's role as sheriff would be to other agencies?
No, how is it going to relate to the enforcement unit of the sheriff's department and so forth? You seem to think that all the sheriff has to be is an administrator, or that's a big part. And I admit that it does, you have to have some administration.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I agree that the major part of the sheriff's office is the administrative component. But as right now, as we continue to work on a daily basis, we work with daily law enforcement agencies. We work whether it's local, federal, and state. And those particular agencies, as when we get together, whether it's on specific cases or there is a group project that something's going on. And I also like to say that we participate a lot in training particular exercises, and we do that on a regular basis. So I do believe whether any sheriff or chief of any law enforcement agency, there must be that continued interaction and working relationship with agencies. And I believe that that has to come from the sheriff. The sheriff's the leader of the organization, and that's what should be done.
Well, Mr. McNamara. Okay, so Mr. Plemons, your question to Mr. McNamara?
Well, my initial question, and we kind of, in a way, got into that a little bit. I wanted to know a little bit more about what type of funding mechanism that you were looking at doing relating to not only the drug task force like we just talked about, but also you'd also mentioned in some of the forums that you and I have been attending, talking about creating a cold case unit that would go out and investigate or assist investigating the unsolved cases that exist out in McLennan County. And specifically, you talked about some of the 50 unsolved murders, I think in Waco, something of that nature. And again, that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is the funding aspect of how that works.
Randy, I think that it could work. I've talked to some officers that have been retired, and they certainly want to help. Some of them have even offered to give their time without getting paid. There's got to be a way to do that. It's done in other places. A lot of agencies, I feel like, would donate somebody to help on some cases. Some of the serious cases, multiple murders, home invasions, and so forth. There's got to be a way to do this. There has to be a way to work with other agencies and get everybody together on the same page and investigate some of these cold cases. Some of them are very brutal, some of them are very horrible, and I don't want these people to be forgotten. I don't want their name to be on a file folder on a shelf somewhere.
And of course, I think everybody who in law enforcement at one point in time in their career come across someone that they know directly as a victim. So I totally agree with that. But with that said, we as a sheriff's office, at least what I'm hearing, is that you feel like that maybe we do not already do that, where we assist other agencies with investigative matters. And we do that on a regular basis. We work with other agencies, especially, when they call upon us. We're going to offer, whether it's a detective, a crime scene technician, someone that may have a specialty in a certain area, to be able to assist them with that. I think that's just part of the law enforcement brotherhood when you all work together. And I think those of you that are in law enforcement know what I'm talking about. But I have to ask a question. I mean, Waco Police Department has a tremendous special crimes unit. They have a lot of folks that get paid for specialized training and equipment to do what they do.
Is there a follow-up question, Mr. Plemons?
I think there is, yes.
Can we have it?
Yeah, I'll get to it. My follow-up question is, have you been requested by the Waco Police Department or any other agency to assist in these cold cases?
I have talked with one of the detectives that has a very, very serious case on his plate, and he was very eager to get assistance. Yes, I have.
Follow-up question from Brad Hall.
Well, I would ask both of you then, we've had a discussion about the importance of the administrative portion of this job, but then let's also talk briefly about who is the best cop on the ground, who has the best law enforcement experience. And tell us then, should our job of sheriff have significant experience writing speeding tickets, doing drug busts, criminal investigations? So if it comes down to the question of who is the best lawman, who wins?
And we'll give you both a minute on this. Mr. McNamara, we'll start with you on this.
I feel like I am because I spent 32 years doing it. I investigated all kinds of crimes. I was involved in very serious, high-threat court cases. I provided security for the judges, for the courts, Many of the cases that I worked on them with the DEA, Texas Rangers, Sheriff's Department, and Police. Some of those cases are still being shown on 48 Hours and A&E, American Justice. They're very serious cases, and that's what I did most of that time. And I feel like I have a real good feel for what the patrol officer goes through, what the detective goes through, and I have been there and I have done that. And I feel like I am the best lawman for the job.
Well, of course, I think I am. And let me say this, I want to be up front. I'm not taking anything away from my opponent. He has served and did a great job with what the functions he performed in the U.S. Marshal Service. But I will say this, he does have this on me. I've not been in the A&E. I've not been on USA Today or the Law and Order shows. And I don't know what the other one was. I can't remember what it was. You know what I'm talking about, all right? But what I have done, though, I have performed a variety of functions throughout my time at the McLennan County Sheriff's Office. Is more of it now more heavy on the administrative side? Yes, it is. I admit that openly. But have I had to have my fair share of ticket writing? I sure have. Have I gotten chewed out several times for it? Yes, I have. Have I had my fair share of fights and things of that nature that sometimes, like Parnell and I have sometimes we'd have to get into as a result of apprehending a criminal? I sure have. Have we each had to be involved in investigating crimes, whether it's relating to embezzlement, sexual assault, investigating oriented businesses relating to what's going on in our community? Yes.
That's time. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Next question is going to come from Duke Machado, who also has one of our student questions that was submitted by a student here at University High School.
Yes, Janice Moran, who is a senior here at University High School, had a question I'm going to incorporate. This is going to be for you, Mr. Plemons. With so many illegal immigrants now living in Texas, people are becoming more concerned with the safety of their neighborhoods. It's hard to define really who's who. How can the Sheriff's Department crack down on criminals while continuing to have good relations with the community, specifically Hispanics who are concerned with Arizona-style tactics? And if it became known that someone in our city was an illegal immigrant, and had broken no apparent law, how do you think the Sheriff's Department should get involved?
Well, of course, if in the Sheriff's Office, we were very heavily involved in the immigration issues relating to individuals that come to the jail. For example, anybody who comes to the jail and is identified as not being born in this country, they are immediately checked with the national system to see if there's anything we need to hold them for at that level. And that's very important because many times that's how we do identify some of our more violent immigrants that are here, in McLennan County. And we hold on to those individuals until the federal government lets us know what we need to do with them from that point forward. And I believe the Sheriff's Office does that in a very professional, a very humane manner at all times. But I believe, my opinion is, that this is an issue that the federal government has to get more involved in. We have our function as a law enforcement agency. But if you're talking about going out there and doing a full-fledged push on trying to find every single illegal immigrant in this county, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but we're going to have to break a lot of taxes to be able to do that. And that's just not a viable tax option for this county. But I will say this, when we do identify individuals that need to be held in order to be taken out of our county and be processed according to wherever the federal government, whether it's ICE, whatever the case may be, we do that. And we do a very good job at it because it's something we take very seriously.
I believe that for the most part, illegal immigrants are belong to the immigration and customs enforcement, ICE agents. Obviously, if they commit a crime, they will be arrested and placed in confinement and prosecuted like any other criminal. Does the sheriff go out and actively look for illegal immigrants? I don't think so. We used to arrest them, and I'm talking about back in the 70s, and then we were told by the government, leave that up to immigration, INS. So that's what we did with U.S. Marshals. It was a hands-off policy. In McLennan County, I believe that the sheriff should let the federal government handle that unless that illegal alien is committing a crime, and then we will deal with it appropriately.
If I can get a quick answer, should the sheriff's office, should law enforcement have the authority, as recent controversies with laws passed in Arizona would have allowed law enforcement to do, to ask about immigration status at the point of, for example, a traffic stop, Mr. McNamara?
If you do that, you have to have the officer trained. He has to be bilingual. There has to be several things in place like that in order to make a good investigation. I certainly couldn't go out there. I'm not bilingual, and on a traffic stop determine if somebody is illegal or not. If that obligation falls on the sheriff's department, there simply must be some training and all in that regard for the deputies that will be working at.
Mr. Plemons, is that something that sheriff's deputies should be doing? Would you want them to be doing that?
Again, if that's a role that the sheriff's office has to pick up to be able to continue its enforcement duties, whether it's something that is instituted by the federal government or by the state government, then of course the sheriff doesn't have any choice but to follow up and complete those tasks. But again, a lot of that's already being done once that person is identified and brought into the facility. On the other hand, though, and I think this is where my opponent was coming from too, you have to be very, very careful in doing that, because officers on the street just can't go around and say, well, you know what, I don't think they're from America. And you're going to have issues when you do that. So that's when he talks about training, yeah, there would have to be some really special training in order to do that.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on. Next question comes from Wes Lloyd on warrants, how they are served in the county. And this question is going to be directed first to Parnell McNamara.
Mr. McNamara, although I have not read any quotes directly from you on this topic, there has been some mention that you contend that there's a backlog of unserved arrest warrants in the McLennan County Sheriff's Department right now, and that the district attorney is unhappy with the department's approach to serving arrest warrants. Is that your position? And if so, what do you base it on, and what would you do differently?
That is my opinion, and it is also the opinion of some other people. I understand there's several hundred warrants on file in the Sheriff's Department. I personally haven't counted them. I've talked to a person that saw the file. I do know that there was some communication between the District Attorney's Office and the Sheriff's Department on warrants that were not being served. I also know that one of the media, the Waco Trib, had inquired about that. And I don't know if they got a good answer on it or not. These warrants, what that means is if there's 400 or 500 active warrants in the files in the Sheriff's Department, which I believe there are, that means that that number of criminals are still out there on the street. This simply must be taken care of and served on a regular basis. Those warrants need to be executed. There's a way to do that. There is a U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force in Waco, and they're arresting not just federal criminals or federal felons, they're arresting state and local. And so what I would propose to do is assign a deputy sheriff to that U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force And then that task force could be utilized to start serving a lot of these warrants that are backlogged in the sheriff's department. It simply must be done.
Mr. Plemons, does that backlog of warrants exist? And if so, why? What should be done about it?
Well, if there's a backlog of 5,000 warrants, which
Andre said, Mr. Plemons, he said hundreds.
hundreds, there are actually thousands of warrants out there. There's hundreds, but they are not all sheriff's office warrants. These are traffic warrants and things of that nature. What I think my opponent is referring to is when he made the comment about our DA being unhappy, which I'm a little shocked and surprised by that, because our DA and I have had several conversations talking about the execution of warrants relating to sealed indictments. We've had those conversations, and we do have a warrant unit that issues out those indictments, whether they're sealed or unsealed. We have a unit of deputies, and that's what they do. And they do that on a regular basis. So, I'm a little, taken back that our deputies are not performing that function because they do it on a daily basis. That is documented. But there are thousands of warrants out there, but those warrants represent warrants, whether they're from the DA's office, through a hot check fund, a constable's office, the sheriff's office, and a variety of other warrant databases that feed into it. But the sheriff's office, when he gets a warrant, it executes that warrant or makes an attempt. Believe it or not, a lot of people who get arrested or they have a warrant for their arrest, they know that they're wanted and they tend to get away from here sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Plemons. The next question is, we're going to go back to panelist Brad Holland, and this one is going to be directed first to Mr. Plemons.
Mr. Plemons, your opponent has gone on the record stating his belief that the sheriff's deputies spend too much time shuttling prisoners around to the hospital for things such as blood draws and toxicology screening. He believes this wastes time and money. My question to you is, do you believe that the limited medical facilities you currently have could be expanded to handle these type of procedures at the jail, or would this not represent any cost or time savings to your department?
Well, the jail is a jail. It's not an emergency room. It's not a care center. It's a place that when a person is brought into the jail, they are evaluated medically first to make sure that they're cleared for acceptance. If they are not, they are sent back to the original agency that brought them in for medical clearance. Now, there are minor things that happen that we can take care of in the jail, but believe it or not, you probably know this from watching TV sometimes, is that when some of these shows, inmates don't want to go to jail, and they tend to fight and put up a little ruckus, and they get themselves hurt. Well, we cannot tell many times when these individuals come in if they have a broken arm, have other kinds of injuries that may not be seen right there in front of the medical staff. So, if we did take the approach where we just went ahead and dropped them off and just took them, we would be incurring an unknown amount of debt in that particular call center at the jail. And that's something that the county and the sheriff's office is not going to do. If someone comes into the jail and they need to be cleared first because of something that's obvious, then we're going to send them to the hospital for medical clearance. This is a practice that's been done for many, many, many years. That doesn't mean that if the medical establishment would like to work up another arrangement, but the county, in its best interest, in its best financial interest, we're not going to hold on to inmates that may have potentially medical problems until they've been medically cleared by a professional.
Mr. McNamara, your response?
I was contacted by two DPS officers that asked me why, when they bring someone in for DWI, do they have to take that individual to the hospital and wait for several hours in the emergency room rather than being able to take blood at the county jail? I don't have the answer for that. me. They said if somebody comes in with a minor abrasion or whatever, they have to go to the emergency room. I'm on the outside looking in, and I am really going by what these police officers have told me. I respect DPS. I know the officers that talked to me, so I believe what they said was true. They said also that when you sit in the emergency room for several hours waiting on somebody to draw their blood alcohol goes down, and they have some kind of little chart that they go by. It would be much more accurate if there was somebody at the county jail to take their blood. I've heard taking blood is one of the easiest things in the world. And I know we have a doctor. He gets paid almost over maybe $250,000 a year. I think there's certain things on minor injuries that maybe could be taken care of there. Once again, this came from DPS and a couple of local police officers.
Are close to the end of our allotted time for this particular debate.
Do I get a follow-up on that?
That was your question, and that was his follow-up, so, sorry. The clock waits for no one. We are going to go, you have 2 minutes of your closing if you would like to use some of that. Closing comments, 2 minutes. First, we're going to go to Parnell McNamara.
Thank you very much. In my law enforcement career, we were involved in many things. And over that period of time, I received a number of awards and commendations. And I want to go over those with you because it shows what I did. I received the highest award the United States Marshal Service gives, which is their Director's Award, the Special Achievement Award. That's the highest award that U.S. Marshals give. I received the Director's Award from the DPS. That's the highest award that DPS gives to someone outside of their agency. I received an award from Secret Service for assisting them. I received an award from DEA, from the Inspector General from the state of Texas. I worked hand in hand with John Walsh of America's Most Wanted to help track down one of the worst serial murderers in this country's history. I have been there. I have done it. I was honored at the state capitol by Governor Ann Richards for my work on one of those cases. I've been endorsed by the Waco Police Association. I'm very proud of that. I've been endorsed by the Waco Association of Realtors. I've also been endorsed by the McLennan County Sheriff's Officers Association. I'm very proud of those. I feel like my frontline law enforcement experience, my feel for the guys out there on the front line, and my ability as an administrator, which I was the deputy in charge of the Waco U.S. Marshal's Office for around 15 years. That encompassed 13 counties that we handled all the federal business in. So I've been there and I have done it. And I got those awards not because I have some paper hanging on my wall, but because I was out there helping those agencies.
Thank you. That's time. Mr. Plemons.
Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Let me just say this. I'm not a celebrity lawman. I've gone to work every day over the last 2 decades to work hard to keep you safe. This is not about a family legacy. It's about what I can do for you as sheriff. My credentials as a peace officer in the state of Texas means a lot to me. But I'm not going to ask the taxpayers to pay for me to go to school while I am the elected sheriff of McLennan County. I will move the sheriff's office forward, and I will not need on-the-job training. The administrative staff will not be new. They will continue to work without any immediate training on their part. It will not be a loss of jobs. My motivation over the years has been to County Sheriff. I kind of thought the sheriff gave me a few more years. This is kind of a surprise, you know, but I'm appreciative of that. I'm proud of the work I've been doing. I have been endorsed by the Sheriff's Law Enforcement Association of McLennan County, which is the largest association. I've been endorsed by the Waco Association, and I'm very happy to say that I've been endorsed as of last week by the Hewitt Police Association. Again, thank you all for being here, and I do want to be your next sheriff of McLennan County.
Reset the stage, and when we come back, we're going to have candidates for Texas House of Representatives